Hello and welcome to the evening news for Wednesday, April 30, 2014. I'm Avinash Ramzan. Thanks for joining us. In the headlines, Guyana revokes work permit for head of U.S. lead project. Quarantine man found with cannabis in pants pocket. Reverend Gilbert says Walter Rodney's death was felt days before. UG inks a deal with minibus union for late-night transport for students and amended budget now with Office of the President. Now for the news in detail. We start off by telling you that Cabinet Secretary Dr. Roger Luncheon today announced that the government has moved to reject the work permit application for the head of the controversial U.S. Leadership and Democracy Project. Let's find out why in this report. Government means business, and as a result, it moved to revoke the work permit and stay of extension of the principal of the U.S. aid-funded IRI Leadership and Democracy Project, Glenn Bradbury. The Guyana government is also maintaining its position that it will not participate in further discussions on the controversial U.S. aid lead project unless it is halted. Cabinet Secretary Dr. Roger Luncheon, speaking during his post-cabinet media briefing at the Office of the President today, explained the move to take assertive action against the Canadian citizen who was contracted to implement the project.
In the meanwhile, Mr. Glenn Bradbury, who is the principal official of the International Republican Institute, contracted by USAID to implement the LEAD project. In the meanwhile, Mr. Bradbury has had his extension of stay and his work permit in Guyana revoked.
Dr. Luncheon said he took the opportunity to reiterate the administration's concerns about the project once again when he met the U.S. Ambassador D. Brent Hart. The Donald Ramotar administration wants a formal reply as to the status of the implementation of the project from Washington.
We asked for a formal response since Cabinet's request was going to be transmitted officially to the American government. And we asked for a timely response also, both of which the ambassador undertook to have honored.
Government is also contending that comments made by the U.S. ambassador on the project were disrespectful and revealing for the most part.
I had mentioned earlier, observed that the U.S. ambassador had made on the 27th of March, after the meeting with the president, what I refer to as a revelation that indeed the project was being implemented. I had also advised Cabinet that it was an amazing assertion by the ambassador that the government knew and the government had been informed, and that indeed the public was equally made aware of the implementation of this project.
The ruling PPPC administration is not waiting on a response from Washington to act, but rather says it will do all it can to ensure that Guyana's sovereignty is not undermined by foreign influences. Ranks attached to the Springlands police station acting upon information this morning arrested a quarantine man after a quantity of cannabis was found in his possession. Carmen and Rai, aged 20, of Lot 155, number 72, Village Quarantine, Berbice, is expected to make his first court appearance at the Springlands Magistrates Court on Friday. He will be charged with possession of narcotics for the purpose of trafficking. According to information received, Cadet Officer Jarmin Dufu, along with Corporal Marshall and a team of police ranks, received a tip-off and went to the home of Rai, where a search was conducted. The suspect's mother was at home at the time. During the search, the ranks observed Rai acting in a suspicious manner. Thus, a search was conducted on him, and the cannabis was found in his right side pants pocket. He was told of the offense, cautioned, and taken into police custody at the Springlands police station. There, the cannabis was weighed in his presence and totaled 16 grams. He will appear in court on Friday. As the third day of the Walter Rodney Commission of Inquiry got underway earlier today, the inquiry's fourth witness, Reverend Reuben Gilbert, told the commission that 3 days before his death, he had told Rodney that he had a strong feeling he would be killed. Alexis Rodney reports.
Retired Reverend Gilbert, who now works with the Guyana Council of Churches, recalled that he met Dr. Rodney sometime in 1978. He said after speaking about his non-appointment at the University of Guyana, Rodney handed him his curriculum vitae, stating that there may come a day when he, Gilbert, will have to use it. Gilbert recalled that the situation in Guyana during that time had driven fear among Guyanese, and Rodney was not exempted. He said the historian had expressed deep concern over the safety of his wife, Patricia, and the 3 children. Gilbert said the feeling was growing every day.
3 days before he was assassinated, I had this feeling, I don't know, it is not something that you can explain. And a lot of people don't believe that there are spiritual forces in the world, so you can't convince them about certain things. But I had this intuition, and I had this terrible, uncomfortable feeling. And that feeling was to go and tell Walter that he will be killed.
He said it took him several attempts before he finally met the leader at his office to express his feeling.
Eventually I gave in, and I went. And the strange thing about it, I did not know where his office was at that time. But I ended up right where he was. And I was hoping that nobody will come but himself. And it happened. He came to the door. After I rapped, he came to the door. And he said, "Reuben, come in." I said, "No, I'm not coming in." I said, "I do want to tell you, you are going to be killed."
Gilbert said Rodney dropped his head and then inquired if he was aware of anyone that may want to kill him, to which he responded in the negative. 3 days after Dr. Rodney was killed, Reverend Gilbert said. Gilbert recalled accused Gregory Smith meeting Rodney at the WPA's Tiger Bay office. At that time, he confessed he had never met Smith before. He said he could not say what was discussed. However, Rodney had begun expressing great fear. For the Evening News, I'm Alexis Rodney.
Meanwhile, as the Commission of Inquiry into the death of historian Dr. Walter Rodney continued, former Working People's Alliance activist Karen D'Souza took to the stand and testified that Rodney's death was expected. More from Vanu Manikchan.
Karen D'Souza was the third witness to testify in the COI, during which she said that due to the strained relationship between the WPA and then government, the People's National Congress, Dr. Walter Rodney's death was expected.
I think we were all kind of living with the expectation that it might happen to Walter or to any of us.
D'Souza told the commissioners that on June 13, 1980, she was at home when Rodney's brother, Donald, frantically went to her house and told her that something had happened to Walter, and so she ran to the scene. She added that when she got there, she saw lots of people and members of the Guyana Police Forces Death Squad on John Street. She recalled what she saw as she approached the car.
There was a car, the roof was blown off, and a shape that seemed kind of boneless was in the car. They faced forward. I essentially recognized that it was Walter, and tried to get closer to the car. Was named by one of the Death Squad people and moved away. And eventually returned home, where Donald was still there, who he was bleeding, and I tried to tend to his injuries.
D'Souza was further questioned about a comment she made in her statement, which said that Rodney was finally killed by the then government. She was asked to explain why she believed his death was imminent.
One, the very seriously adversarial posture of the WPA and the PNC. The fact that 2 party members had been killed before Walter was killed. the fact that I think at one of the, or at more than one of the big PNC rallies, the Prime Minister had been uttering threats about make your wills and sharper steel and so forth.
The inquiry into Rodney's death will continue for the commissioners of the inquiry.
Chairman of the People's National Congress, Basil Williams, today told the Walter Rodney Commission of Inquiry that it is suspending the laws of Guyana since anything is allowed in the dissemination of evidence. More in this report.
Williams, who is representing the interest of the People's National Congress during the inquiry, raised objections when Reverend Reuben Gilbert suggested two reading materials to members of the Commission and legal counsel. Williams said the Commission has relaxed the law to the extent that people are allowed to bring all kinds of evidence. According to him, such evidence may have far-reaching consequences.
Mr. Chairman, you have in this commission people saying, I think this person killed this person. I think this person is a member of that organization. And what is that? In under our law, that is inadmissible evidence. In my opinion, the PNC killed this person. In my opinion, these were YSM. Nothing that is inadmissible in a court of law in this country.
But it is not inadmissible here.
No, but
we will determine whether any weight at all should be attached to those statements.
Well, Mr. Chairman, by the time you do that, this has international coverage, and people's names that have been called have been sullied and destroyed perhaps for eternity. And that cannot be fair to the Guyanese people.
But Senior Counsel Sinoth Jairam in rebuttal said that the Commission is bound by the laws of Guyana. He said that the Commission of Inquiry has the freedom to make its own rules. Among the rules of the current Commission of Inquiry is the allowance of persons to give evidence, whether by hearsay or by way of opinion.
A body such as the Commission of Inquiry is entitled to make its own rules. We have published the rules. And, we have been telling you ad nauseum that we admit things the Beni and one has to appreciate it's a long time ago we're dealing with, and we will sift it and determine the relevance. I am sure, being the experienced counsel that you are, you would have had some appreciation of Reverend Gilbert. Seems to be he seems to be struggling with his health and everything else. So I don't think you're being charitable, but we have not suspended the laws and speaking for myself, I have not suspended the laws of Guyana.
But Williams maintained his position, pointing out that there is no law within the Commission of Inquiry that the national laws was allowed to ambience. However, when it comes down to making decisions about laws in Guyana, the Commission should not suspend the laws that were passed in Guyana's parliament and eradicate the rights of the Guyanese people. Meanwhile, Chairman of the Commission, Sir Richard Cheltenham, reminded Williams about the flexibility that was spoken of. Commissioner Cheltenham on Monday had told the persons at the opening of the inquiry that the investigation was not a court trial with its predetermined rules of evidence and practices. He had said that anything that was relevant to the terms of reference will be taken into account with the aim of arriving at the truth. For the Evening News, I'm Alexis Rodney.
This is the Evening News. Stay tuned. More news still ahead. Welcome back. This is the Evening News. In this report, you'll hear that the 2014 Appropriation Act is now awaiting the assent of President Donald Ramotar following amendments made by the National Assembly this month.
Cabinet Secretary Dr. Roger Luncheon says that the Office of the President received the amended Appropriation Act from the Parliament of Guyana last week. He said that the act, which features 10 major sets of non-approvals from the National Assembly, is awaiting presidential assent, while underscoring several startling features.
That act, where the opposition was concerned, did not provide approval in 10 instances. Did not provide approval in 10 instances. Those 10 instances, one was a current expenditure, and 9 of them involve capital expenditure. 1 current and 9 capital.
Dr. Luncheon has also expressed more concerns about the act and the manner in which undermines the operations and responsibilities of the Office of the President. He said that the government will now have to look to other means within the law so that the ministry can be run effectively.
It is to be noted that the one instance where the current expenditure was not approved was also Office of the President, we might say Office of the President receiving the actions, responding and having to respond to the actions of the opposition in not having its current expenditure for its main program approved. Strangely, the capital expenditure associated with that program was one of the 9 instances when capital expenditure was not approved. A stranglehold, current and capital, for the major program at the Office of the President not being approved. I said, and I didn't mean it facetiously, obviously the intention of the opposition on our Shivnarine Chandrapal Drive premises is to have erected a for rent sign, because in the absence of current and capital flows, we probably might be able to acquire revenue renting the facilities, as we wouldn't be able to run a ministry.
The University of Guyana and the United Minibus Association on Wednesday signed a memorandum of understanding which will see minibuses being available to students from 7 hours to 21 hours Monday to Friday. On Saturday, the schedule is 7 hours to 17 hours. Students using public transportation have had to endure nightly struggles to get transportation to and from the Turkine campus. Most of the minibuses plying the route turn off their engines at 17 hours, a time when most of the UG students are still in classrooms. Owing to the lack of transportation, students have been utilizing a back route which leads them to Sophia, where they can easily access public transportation. But this shortcut, as it is commonly called, is a hotbed for criminals who usually lurk around the area waiting on the right time to pounce on their victims. In this Jomo Paul report, we'll hear now that Acting President Samuel Hines yesterday urged citizens to be more vigilant in the fight against vandalism.
Acting President Samuel Hines said that citizens should be vigilant and aid in the fight against vandalism of private and public properties.
The problem is we have to get our people to stop, and then we have to maybe get the majority of our people on the side of being against people who vandalize, so that we'll get reports on any acts of vandalism.
Mr. Prime Minister, I think what is important though is what is in place or could be put in place to prevent either the legal or illegal exportation of these products. Could you comment on that?
Well, there are the usual things to check for illegal exports and smuggling. They're the usual. Again, they don't come free. They don't come free, and you'll have to be everywhere to stop them.
Hines pointed out that while there was still a ban on the export of copper-based metals, there was speculation on how corporates have been managing to smuggle the contraband.
We still have more or less a ban on exporting of non-ferrous metals. From time to time, we make special allowances, say, for companies that generate their own scrap.
Just about a week ago, vandals stole some 15 meters of cable from GT&T. GRMA President Desmond Sears has since expressed concern over the vandalizing of the feeder cable over the Easter weekend. He said that the act is more than likely the work of illegal scrap metal dealers. Jomo Paul for the Evening News.
President Donald Ramotar says there was a growing recognition of the importance of agriculture, which was vital for food security and essential in maintaining the political stability of the community as well as the region as a whole. Speaking at the third CARICOM Mexico summit held on Tuesday in Mexico, President Ramotar welcomed the announcement made earlier by His Excellency Enrique Pena Nieto, the President of Mexico, regarding his government's financial contribution to the Inter-American Institute for Agriculture for assistance to CARICOM states to support the improvement of the agricultural sector, an important aspect of Caribbean life. President Ramotar reminded the meeting that it was to rise in food prices in Tunisia that had started all the crisis, which was unfortunately still raging in the Middle East. Highlighting the challenges which CARICOM faced in the agricultural sector, President Ramotar pointed out that despite the many initiatives taken, the CARICOM region was still a net importer of food, with the food bill amounting to more than $4 billion per year. He said it was clear that the region needed a joint agricultural policy through which member states could complement each other and raise their production to reduce the vulnerability in the sector, in the process examining the many problems that have emerged and those that were emerging. The Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean has predicted a 4.6% growth rate for Guyana this year, 1% less than the 5.6% projected by the country. More from Alexis Rodney.
The Regional United Nations Organization released on Tuesday its updated economic overview of Latin America and the Caribbean 2013. The report has reviewed information on the key economic variables of 2013 and presented new growth estimates for the region. During his budget speech, Finance Minister Dr. Ashni Singh had stated that Guyana's economy is projected to expand by 5.6% in 2014, with the non-sugar economy projected to grow by 5.2%. He told the National Assembly that the inflation rate is pegged at 5% compared to the 0.9% last year, the lowest rate in decades. Real gross domestic product grew by 5.2% last year, while the non-sugar GDP rose by 6.3%. In 2013, the country's economy recorded its 8th consecutive year of growth. However, while the economy as a whole continues to show sustainable growth, the sugar industry continues to struggle. According to Minister Singh, a more concerted effort is needed to change the industry. Meanwhile, ECLAC says that the 2014 regional growth rate will be slightly higher than 2013's 2.5%, but lower than the rate forecasted in December, due to an external context still marked by uncertainty and lower growth than expected for the region's largest economies. Brazil and Mexico will expand by 2.3% and 3%, respectively. For the Evening News, I'm Alexis Rodney.
In the courts, Matthew Gaspar pleaded not guilty to the charge of armed robbery when he appeared before Chief Magistrate Priya Sinarayan Bihari in the Georgetown Magistrates Court today. It is alleged that on April 19 in Georgetown, Gaspar, being armed with a gun, robbed Shu Shishang of $310,000 cash, one laptop, one iPod, all a total value of $701,000. The 19-year-old hot dog vendor was represented by attorney at law Paul Fungafat and pleaded not guilty. The defense counsel told the court that his client resides at Durban Backlands and has never had any brushes with the law, thus he has never been convicted. Fungafat also informed the court that nothing was found on his client, no weapon or any of the articles which were allegedly stolen. He further stated that there was no confession statement and no identification parade was conducted to incriminate his client. Gaspar was refused bail and remanded until May 12, when he will make another appearance in the Georgetown Magistrates Court before Magistrate Priya Sinarayan Bihari. Tensions flared at the Georgetown Public Hospital on Tuesday evening when two families exchanged words, with one accusing the other of covering up for a thief and the other insisting that they had the wrong man. Jomo Paul reports.
Three men, Kurt Brown, Calvin Daniels and Marcus Liston, are now patients at the GPHC following an alleged robbery at Daisy Street, West Rumveld at approximately 9 p.m. last evening. Reports are that Brown, 34, and his friend Daniels were sitting at a popular night spot when they were approached by two men who demanded that they hand over their valuables. They refused and a scuffle ensued, which resulted in Brown being shot in his right hand. Subsequently, the gunmen attempted to make their escape while firing 10 shots in the air, who had come out in pursuit of them. The resident subsequently apprehended Liston and accused him of being one of the gunmen. Meanwhile, at GPHC, Liston's mother maintained that they had gotten the wrong man. According to Liston's mother, she was at home when she got a call that her son was being beaten and accused of being a bandit. She said moments before she got a disturbing call, she had just told her son to come for some food. She maintained that her son was a pastor and never had any brushes with the law. Police are currently investigating. For the evening news, Jomo Paul.
The series of meetings between the Caribbean community CARICOM and Mexico, including the third summit, must be viewed as creating a new platform for the relationship in the years ahead. This view was expressed by the chairman of CARICOM's Council for Foreign and Community Relations, Winston Ducuran, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Trinidad and Tobago, as he spoke at the opening of a meeting of Foreign Affairs Ministers of CARICOM and Mexico in Mexico on Tuesday morning. Ducuran said the 40-year relationship had evolved into a more mature one that took into account both global and developmental issues. CARICOM foreign ministers and heads of government are in Merida for the third summit with Mexico, which takes place later on Tuesday. All the speakers at the opening session of the foreign ministers meeting expressed their pleasure at the Mexico-Caribbean Business Forum, which took place on Monday. Dedicated to the memory of German geographer Robert Schomburg, the Protected Areas Commission building at a national park was declared open on Tuesday.
There was much talk of sustainable bilateral relations between Guyana and Germany from Prime Minister Samuel Heinz, Natural Resources Minister Robert Persaud, and German Ambassador Stefan Schuttler. Minister Persaud in his remarks highlighted that over the years, Guyana and Germany have continued to strengthen their ties.
Today, the commissioning of this building is a result of a long and enduring partnership between Germany and Guyana, two nations that have come together over a deep commitment to biodiversity conservation and to fight against climate change. And this goes back to 2004, when Germany and Guyana implemented a 2.56 million euros Guyana Protected Areas System, the GPAS project. Referred to as GPAS Phase 1, this project supported sustainable livelihood projects in over 30 Amerindian communities associated with Shell Beach, Kunuku Mountains, Kaieteur National Park, and Upper Mazaruni.
Further, he noted that the commissioning of the new office will positively impact the work of the Protected Areas Commission 3 Parks Initiative and the Litter Warden, since all 3 entities will be stationed at that location.
The construction of this building and its location and the decision for it to certainly have such place of prominence reflects the importance that our government places in terms of having first the Protected Areas Commission, but also in the wider context in terms of the role of the environment as we pursue sustainable development.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Heinz pointed out that Guyana is not heading into the area of industrialization, but rather into tourism, and the government should make adequate preparation for such.
Guyana, with a population of less than 1 million, and on one hand, and on the other hand, a size about that of Great Britain, and Great Britain has a population, I think, in the order of 60 million or more. We are not, at this time and maybe never, would become a great industrial country with great densities of population and so on. So what is open to us? What would be natural for us is that we make Guyana into a park for the world.
Park Commissioner Damian Fernandez related that the building will not only improve the work of the Protected Areas Commission, but also that of the 3 Parks Initiative, which will be used as a window for the protected areas.
Head of the Presidential Secretariat, Dr. Roger Luncheon, today announced that the Treaty of Chaguaramas is up for review by CARICOM. More in this report.
The Treaty of Chaguaramas is up for review by CARICOM after some deficiencies were pointed out in a recent court matter.
The ruling of the CCJ in the celebrated case involving Trinidad Cement Limited led to formal efforts by the community to address the deficiencies in the treaty.
Luncheon noted that the revised treaty would see some modification in the tariff system.
At the March conference of heads of government of CARICOM held in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, opened for signature was the latest and the approved version of a revision that essentially provided greater flexibility to participating states to respond to the functioning of the common external tariff system.
He further posited that the revised treaty is currently open for signature by the CARICOM member states.
Open for signature by participating states was that amended provision that would allow, during a suspension of the CET, participating states to approach quoted to increase the CET instead of just removing or reducing.
2 men today appeared in the Georgetown Magistrates Court before Chief Magistrate Priya Sinarayan Bihari, charged with unlawfully and maliciously assaulting each other on April 22 at Home Street. Sion Lewis and Shomar Monroe, who both reside at 28 Home Street, South Commingsburg, were represented by attorneys at law James Bond and Paul Fungafat and pleaded not guilty. Bond told the court his client and Monroe are neighbors and that the 2 men have a history of violence against each other. Fungafat, in his representation of Monroe, said that he is shocked that an injury which was caused to the client by a cutlass was deemed a summary matter. The police prosecutor made no objections to bail, and the 2 were placed on a bond to keep the peace and placed on their own recognizance. In case you've just joined us, you're watching the evening news. Stay tuned. More news still ahead. This is the evening news. Welcome back. In the region, the Jamaican government on Tuesday hinted that the possibility of amending a controversial tax on bank withdrawals, with Prime Minister Portia Simpson-Miller saying her Finance Minister, Dr. Peter Phillips, would address the issue when he winds up debate on the $540.1 million Jamaican dollars budget. The government had initially indicated last week that it intends to receive Jamaican $2.5 billion in revenue from the new levy on the use of ATMs, ABMs, electronic banking, point of sales, check and internet transfers when the measure goes into effect on June 1. The levy on withdrawals from deposit-taking institutions and security dealers will be calculated on a graduated rate system, with withdrawals less than $1 million being subject to a 0.1% tax. Phillips said the measure was expected to bring in revenue estimated at $2.25 million Jamaican dollars this fiscal year and would provide the bulk of the revenue in new taxes. Internationally, the U.S. FBI will create a unit to help trace the assets of corrupt foreign leaders to complement an existing group of prosecutors focused on the issue, Attorney General Eric Holder says. The announcement comes as the United States scrambles to respond to the unrest in Ukraine and follows a new round of sanctions the United States announced on Monday over Moscow's involvement in the crisis. Prosecutors, agents, and other U.S. government officials have traveled to Ukraine to help authorities there recover assets allegedly stolen by the former President Viktor Yanukovych's government, Holder said in remarks before a London conference on recovering Ukraine assets. Around 12 agents and analysts will be part of the new FBI squad to support such efforts in Ukraine and elsewhere, he said. In case you've just joined us, this is the evening news. We'll now take a look at your Brit reports. The Damrar Harbour Bridge will be closed on Thursday, May 1 at 5 hours for a period of 1.5 hours, and the Berbice Harbour Bridge will be closed on Thursday, May 1 at 16 hours 55 for a period of 1.5 hours. And now for your ferry report, the Purika and Supanam ferries will be departing at 5 hours on Thursday, May 1, 2014. Both ferries are also slated to depart their respective locations at 18 hours on Thursday, May 1, 2014. Join us after the break now for sports, sponsored by Maccorp. This is the evening news. Welcome back now for a look at sport, but first the headlines. NOC boxers to compete in National Novice Championships. Dozens graduate from NSC swimming camp and Mumbai Indians remain winless in IPL. Of course, our sportcast comes to the kind compliments of MacWarp. Now for the details, we start off with some boxing news. 5 young boxers from the New Opportunity Corps will compete against fellow Guyanese from across the country in the National Novice Championships slated for this weekend at the East Randolph Community Ground, popularly known as California Square. More on this report. The boxers were introduced to the local media on Wednesday morning in the office of President of the Guyana Boxing Association, Stephen Inval. They will battle in the junior category of the championship, which will be held on Saturday and Sunday from 19 hours. The event is a collaborative effort of the Boxing Board and the National Sports Commission, and according to Ninval, they are pleased to have the NOC youngsters on board.
And we want to use this as an opportunity to let persons know, or the public know, that boxing is a sport and it can be used. It's a sport that can be used to rehabilitate persons. So, we have 5 boxers from the New Opportunity Corps. They are under the tutelage of our national coach, Mr. Winsor Thomas. The New Opportunity Corps over the years have produced many of our national champions. And who knows, standing behind me could be a future national champion of this country.
Physical trainer at the NOC, Lawrence Kelman, boasted that there is rich talent in the facility and by extension Essequibo, noting that the boxers are expected to give a good account of themselves.
Back home in Essequibo, there are many other such fighters. I hope that this will be the stepping stone for others back home to follow.
Assistant Director of Youth, Devanan Ramdat, under whose purview the NOC falls, described the move to have the boxers compete in a Novices Championship as a quote-unquote major achievement.
NOC is known over the years to contribute quite a number of boxers in the past. I've been around for the last 4 years and I would have seen that the students have tremendous interest in the area of boxing. Not only boxing, but today I'm happy to know that we have 5 young men who would have demonstrated the kind of interest with support from staff and certainly with support from Mr. Ninval, our Deputy Permanent Secretary.
Technical Director of the Guyana Boxing Association, Terence Poole, welcomed the boxers, noting that the NOC is known for producing quality boxers over the years.
Good to see that we have NOC back on board, which I think is a good move in terms of boxing. I'm sure boxing showing some sort of development. NOC used to bring it to the fore in daytime, so we hope we get it back just like in the old time.
The 5 boxers are Andrew Newton, Nico Joda, Calvin Barry, Joel Best and Samuel Ford. The Novice Championship will attract rivalry in the elite, junior and youth categories for males and the female division. About 60 boxers are expected to do battle. The National Sports Commission's annual Easter Beginners Swimming Camp came to a successful close on Wednesday at the Culgrane Swimming Pool. Tristan Joseph reports.
60 children between the ages of 6 to 11 can now hold their own in a pool after their involvement in the Easter Swimming Camp, which was sponsored by the Ministry of Sport and the National Sports Commission. At the closing ceremony, Director of Sport Neil Kumar shared his thoughts on what the camp means.
We are preparing your child to be an all-round child. But the secret about swimming, whichever sport discipline your child may choose, right? Swimming is essential. Because swimming is the only complete discipline that when you swim, your entire body is exercised and you are physically fit.
Permanent Secretary Alfred King touched on the development system that the government is trying to put in place for the future generations of Guyanese.
So right away, having given you just a couple of what we're doing, a few programs of what we're doing, you'll appreciate that the ministry's approach to sports development is not one of just providing you with facilities, but enhancing the usage of those facilities by providing competence and quality in instructors and coaches that will see us roll out a program.
Meanwhile, the young swimmers displayed their newly learnt abilities to the applause of their parents in both King and Kumar.
And finally, some cricket news. Mumbai Indians' disastrous run in this year's IPL continued as they remain winless after 5 games, losing to the Sunrisers Hyderabad by 15 runs. David Warner stroked 65 and Lokesh Rahul fought 46. In Sunrisers won 72 for 5, to which Mumbai Indians replied with 157 for 7. Despite a brilliant 46-ball 78 that included 6 sixes from Kieran Pollard, he could not inspire victory as the Mumbai Indians remain at the bottom of the points table. The IPL will continue on Friday, with Chennai Super Kings playing Kolkata Knight Riders. And with that, we have come to the end of sport, which is sponsored by MarCorp. Of course, you can find these and many more stories in tomorrow's edition of the Guyana Times. And here's an invitation to join us on TVG Channel 28 and on Radio Guyana Inc. 89.3 in Essequibo, 89.5 in Georgetown Environs, and 89.7 in Berbice and Unicary, Suriname. And with that, we've come to the end of the evening news for Wednesday, April 30, 2014. I'm Avinash Ramzan. Thanks for watching.